The bright lights of Hollywood had never dulled Brennan Elliott's heart. To the public, he was the charming, steady presence in every Hallmark movie, the dependable leading man. But off-screen, his life was rooted in something far more sacred than fame: his love for Cammie, his wife of over a decade. Their story wasn't one made for headlines. They met before the glitz and glamour, when Brennan was still struggling for bit roles and Cammie was a gifted psychologist quietly changing lives. She believed in him even before he believed in himself. And when the world finally took notice of Brennan, he never forgot the woman who stood by his side through it all. Their life was simple, filled with cozy mornings over coffee, silly dances in the kitchen, and whispered prayers before bed. But in 2018, their quiet bliss was shattered with 4 terrifying words: "You have stomach cancer." Cammie had always been strong. She faced life's challenges with unwavering grace. But this diagnosis shook them both to their core. Brennan, usually the calm in the storm, found himself drowning in fear. Why her? He asked over and over. Not the woman who gave so much, who smiled at strangers, who nurtured the broken-hearted. Cammie's battle began with cautious optimism. The doctors were hopeful. Treatment plans were laid out, and for a time, things looked up. Brennan juggled acting roles and hospital visits, sleeping on couches and feeding her broth with trembling hands. He became her caretaker, her anchor. But cancer is a cruel thief, stealing strength, joy, and eventually, hope. Despite their efforts, the disease returned again and again. It spread, quietly at first, then viciously. Still, Cammie fought. She wore her headscarves like a crown, greeted every nurse with kindness, and never once complained about the pain. She made jokes when Brennan cried and comforted him through her suffering. "I don't want you to stop living when I go," she whispered to him once, curled up on their bed, her frame frail beneath the sheets. Brennan clutched her hand, unable to speak. The thought of a life without her felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, with nothing but darkness below. Cammie began writing letters, dozens of them, one for every milestone she knew she might miss. Their son's high school graduation, his first heartbreak, their daughter's wedding, Brennan's 50th birthday. She wrote them in looping handwriting, stained with tears. She wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of leaving them behind. As the months wore on, her strength waned. She lost weight, her skin turned pale, and the sparkle in her eyes dimmed. But Brennan never stopped hoping. He prayed in hospital hallways, begged doctors for more time, and read every article on experimental treatments. He canceled film shoots, turned down roles. Nothing mattered more than her. One autumn evening, as the leaves began to fall, Brennan brought Cammie to their favorite place, a quiet cabin by a lake in British Columbia. It had been their secret hideaway, the place where they escaped the noise of the world. She smiled when she saw it, her breath catching in awe. "Thank you," she whispered, tears in her eyes. They spent the weekend there, just the two of them. He carried her to the porch wrapped in blankets. They watched the sun set over the water, holding hands in silence. Brennan tried to memorize everything about her: the curve of her cheek, the rhythm of her breathing, the warmth of her touch. "I'm not afraid," she said that last night. "I just don't want to say goodbye." "You don't have to," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "I'll carry you with me, always." Cammie passed away in her sleep, her hand still wrapped in his. The days after were a blur. The funeral was small, just close friends and family. Brennan stood at the podium, trying to find the words to honor the woman who had given him everything. But all he could do was cry. "She was the best person I've ever known," he finally said, voice breaking. "She saved me, over and over." Life moved on around him, but Brennan didn't. Every room in their home echoed with her absence. The kitchen felt empty without her laughter. The bed was cold. He would wake up thinking she was still beside him, only to be met by the crushing silence. Fans continued to message him, unaware of the full story. "When will you be back on Hallmark? We miss your smile." But Brennan felt broken. Acting felt hollow. Nothing he could portray on screen compared to the real-life heartbreak consuming him. Their children were grieving too. Brennan did his best to be strong for them, but there were nights he'd collapse into Cammie's pillow, clutching her letters, trying to feel her presence. He'd read them aloud when the kids were asleep, hearing her voice in this. "It means I'm not there beside you, but I'm still in every breath you take, every sunrise, every whisper of the wind. You are the love of my life. Promise me you'll live." Those words haunted him. Promise me you'll live. So slowly, painfully, he tried. He took the kids to the beach like she used to. He cooked her favorite recipes, though he always messed up the spices. He joined grief counseling, opened up to friends, and even wrote poetry when the nights felt too long. One day, months after her passing, Brennan stood in front of a camera again. The director was hesitant, but Brennan insisted. "I'm not here to play a character," he said. "I'm here to honor her." The film was about loss, a widower learning to find joy again. Brennan didn't have to act. He just told the truth. Audiences noticed. The tears in his eyes were real. The ache in his voice, authentic. The movie became a surprise hit, not because of its story, but because of Brennan's vulnerability. He started speaking publicly about grief, using his platform to raise awareness for stomach cancer. He told the world about Cammie, her bravery, her compassion, her light. "She was my home," he said in one interview, "and now I carry that home within me." Years passed. The pain didn't vanish, but it softened. Brennan still visited the lake cabin every fall, spreading flowers into the water, whispering her name to the wind. He never remarried. His heart belonged to one woman, always would. And when asked how he survived it all, he would say, "Because she asked me to." One spring morning, Brennan's daughter found him sitting in the garden, a small smile on his lips as he looked up at the sky. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" she asked. He reached into his pocket and handed her the final letter Cammie had written, unopened until that day. She read it aloud, her voice shaking. "When it's finally time, when you're tired and ready, I'll be waiting. By the lake, with the sunset. With the wind in my hair and that silly blanket you always insisted was warm. I'll be there, and we'll dance again." Tears spilled down her cheeks. Brennan didn't say anything. He just smiled, the kind of smile that only comes when the heart knows peace.